Hello and welcome to this new video where today we're going to talk about the first sort of week, you could say, of Pacific playoffs. Um, I'm going to do this on sort of a week by week basis. Obviously, it's a bit weird when it comes to playoffs, but I'm just going to do them weekly. And this week, we first had Talon versus Genji, then we had the RXT1, then we had Boom Genji, and RRQ DRX. Now, going into the first game, we had sort of Talon G1 T Genji, where Talon, I mean, the week before had looked absolutely fantastic, just absolutely obviously destroyed T1. It looked really good. So this was sort of a litmus test for me because I felt like not only had Genji gotten better and better with each week, um, we also knew that they lost to DRX, right? Last game. So coming into this, I felt like this game would be like a good litmus test for Genji to see, okay, how much better can we look for playoffs now? And I feel like we really saw it, although they did lose a map. It wasn't like Talon were any slouches either. Like Talon looked absolutely incredible in this Haven. I mean, this Haven was just absolutely stellar. And honestly, Genji, I don't think could have done much to win this Haven. Now, the reason why that isn't very concerning for me, though, is mostly just because after that point, I mean, Icebox was just destruction on all fronts. And then Pro was just kind of sad. I mean, Cruz went 2-14, Kahlua 4. It was kind of sad to watch. Because, like, Talon didn't have a chance. Like, to be honest, like, they just didn't look competitive at all, which was kind of sad. But, I mean, yeah, Genji just looked really good. And except for that Haven, which I feel like you can somewhat write off, I think they looked to the level which we would expect from Genji, if not even better. Now, going into the DRX T1 series, I mean, personally, I had DRX as pretty big favorites coming into this game, although T1 obviously had like the entire winning Masters and everything. They had a bit of a rougher stage 2 or stage 1. Also losing obviously their final 2 games. It did look like it started to crumble a bit, and I feel like you sort of saw this a bit this game. Although I will say although it is a 2-0, DRX probably like this could have gone either way still. Like it wasn't like it was one of those games where it's just like, oh yeah, this was an obvious 2-0. And it wasn't really one of those games where it felt like one team just managed to close both maps out. It more just felt like a 50-50 game that just ended up going into one team's favor on both the 50-50 maps. Like it was just 15, 13, 14, 12, obviously both OT. Now, it was really close, and I feel like after this game, actually, I feel like almost my DRX stocks went down a bit, and maybe I don't think T1 went up particularly, but I do think we still see some potential in like T1 here. I mean, experimenting with this sort of thing where they have Meteor on Terra and everything. I mean, it could work. I just think this is a lot better. With the Izu on it and then Meteor on the Senti. Now Meteor obviously had an off day, which actually bodes kind of well for T1, as I do think T1 could be looking better because of that. But yeah, I would just, if I was T1, I would just sort of try to go back to pretty standard comps with like something similar to what you did here, right? On Fracture, where you had Brimstone, Breach Tail, with obviously they went for the Neon and then the Vice, like something like that. Just try to go pretty standard and go from there. Because although the double duelist is great, I only think it will work on certain maps, right? You have like your Havens, you have your like what are other maps do they usually play? Like yeah, like their Haven. Obviously, it's probably gonna work like almost every time. Split, yeah, double duelist. Obviously, it's split. I could see it working. Although obviously then I would say on this split, I'm pretty sure, um, yeah, Meteor's on the Viper, which he's also pretty comfortable on. So that one obviously works as well. Now this Icebox, let's just not talk about it. And other than that, though, like there isn't. Maybe you could argue that you could do it on Pearl, but other than that, like you want to kind of go pretty standard on the other maps. I feel like if you're T1, and I think that's sort of the direction it seems like they're going in, and with them banning Icebox now as well, it's looking like T1 are moving in the right direction, but I think it might be a bit too late. That's sort of like my thought process, right? Like they should beat Paper X. I just have questions. We're gonna talk about Boom in a bit, just the game after this. But let's just say if Boom looks even remotely close to what they did throughout the regular season, I I doubt that DRX would be able to beat them, or not DRX T1. But it's gonna be interesting. Now looking at my picks, I mean these two I was cooking, and then obviously both of the other two were complete upsets, and those are what we're gonna go into now. Now Boom Genji, I feel like was the least one like upset one. I feel like here when I went for Boom, I was just like, all right, they've not lost a game yet. Let's not bet against them. Now this did feel quite a lot like nerves, right? At this point, like throughout the regular season, like with every single game they played, right? You almost always had a question mark with them with every single game, right? They beat Genji week 1, and it's like, okay, but that was a Genji team that was in like a very big transitional period, and it was still close. So like you still had those question marks, and then you beat Global Esports pretty comfortably, and you're like, okay, yeah, but well done. But also that Global Esports team is in shambles right now, so it's not that impressive. Now then they beat Paper X, and you're like, okay, nice. That one was a bit close though. Maybe it's a bit too close, considering it's Paper X. You know, they've not been very good so far. Is basically what I'm trying to say. But they ended up winning it, and then they go on to play DRX, and then they beat them, and you're like, oh shit, this team might actually be something. And then obviously they played DFM, which was probably the first game where they were not the underdogs, I would say, or maybe not the underdogs, but I would say like it was probably the first game where it felt like, okay, they should win this, like 100% they should win this. And they did, and it looked comfortable. And at that point, you're like, okay, yeah, this team definitely has legs. And at this point, you're like, okay, you can't really bet against them. But I feel like what happened here was sort of this was the first game where people actually had expectations for them, right? Throughout the regular season, we sort of always had that little bit of doubt. Obviously, up until the DRX game. Now against DFM, you still had that, but it was DFM. Like that game, like it wasn't like that game mattered much for Boom still, because not only would Boom still most likely win the group, even if they lost to DFM, but also it was DFM. It was like this DFM roster is just not good. This is not that good. So going into this game, I mean, this was probably the first like big game where people had like some sort of expectations on them actually really performing well, and it feels like the pressure sort of got to them. The Ascent first half, I mean, yeah, that happened. But even then, like the split, right? Once again, 10-2 attack half from Genji. Like it just felt like they just completely crumbled, and it took them way too long to get into the game, and it just lost them. And I think, let's just say this, I think they will look better. It's just a bit concerning seeing a game like this where Boom just looks so much less confident. Like, so much less confident than what we've seen them before. Now, I still trust that they can get back into the form we saw earlier, but it is a bit concerning. I will say that much. Now, RQDRX, I am a lot more. I'm not as like concerned for either of these teams as I am for like a Boom. Um, this was more of a straight up just good game. I feel like Fracture, DRX won, and it was a close match. It was their map pick, whatever. Like this was a pretty good map from both sides, and I think this showed like the closeness of like these two teams. Now Icebox, I mean, it just felt like RRQ had the read of how DRX wanted to play Icebox, and they just ran with that, and it just worked everywhere. Like that defensive half, it just felt like no matter where DRX went, there was at least three members of RRQ already there ready to flood. Like it just felt like DRX never got any sort of map space for free, and it also just felt like every single time they tried to like change something up, if they tried to like move around the map in a different way, it just felt like RQ had a way of reading that just worked every single time, and it just looked ridiculously good. And then Lotus obviously came around and went into OT, and once again it was really close. And I feel like that's sort of what I looked at. Like I probably had DRX above RQ by quite a lot before this game, but also I'm not as surprised because obviously I didn't expect DRX to look that equal to T1, although obviously it still was a 2-0. I don't think anybody would disagree if I say that that game was a lot closer than what it seemed on paper when you saw 2-0. Um, Now, because of that game, I was not as confident coming into this game. But I still thought DRX would win this, but like RRQ could keep it close. Because that's sort of always the team RRQ is. Either that or they just completely bomb out and are terrible. They just look really solid here, man. Like they just look really good. And sure, some people might have had some question marks after they lost to Team Secret, but I feel like also that game just felt like RQ sort of just didn't have much to play for, and Team Secret just had everything to play for. And in that sense, like because obviously a lot of the Team Secret players probably are just fighting for their lives for a place to stay on this roster, right? Because this roster is like rap is probably gonna change quite a lot, and even if it doesn't, like they still need to prove themselves because that like that and that this roster can work. And that's what this game really felt like. It felt like Team Secret just went full on into this game and was like, all right, we need to show them that we actually can play Valorant, right? Because it looked really rough before this game, and RQ sort of went to this game just thinking, all right, let's just go in there and just win this game real quick. And because of Team Secret just came into this game thinking, we need to win this, they ended up winning it. Although obviously it was close, they ended up winning it because of that, I think. So I wasn't as concerned, but I still didn't expect like RRQ to be like a crazy, crazy good team. But I feel like they really showed that against DRX. Now I don't think they will beat Genji, and I think DRX probably with a bit more time, because currently like the roster is a bit in like messy spots, but with a bit more time and this I think this DRX roster is still better than RRQ. I just think RRQ's current form is really good, and DRX's really isn't. Um, but yes, I think Genji should still win here. Now coming to lowers, I mean Talon Nongshim should be a banger. Uh, then T1 Paper X. I mean, it could be, but I just see T1 winning that pretty easily, and then these two are going to be really interesting. I think this one will be less, but this one is going to be really interesting. And I feel like it's really going to be like the stone for like, okay, boom. How good are you? How good are you? Because like this team has looked so incredible. Can you pull it together in playoffs? And can you actually look as good as you've shown potential to be? But yeah, That was my sort of recap of the Pacific playoffs, week 1, if you want to call it that. I don't really know, but there we go. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.